It's a sad and somber sports day in this household, but that means it's a good time to talk baseball. We'll be doing that coming up next on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Happy Monday night, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. A day later than usual, but a little bit of travel stuff with us, so we decided to flip it a day later. So I'm Scott Jenstad, joined as always by Jeff Erickson on what usually Sunday night, now Monday night. We're sponsored by Fantrax. We appreciate their sponsorship all year. Jeff, how's everything with you?
Doing a little planes and automobiles. No trains in there yet, but
it'd be
doing all right.
Tough to find a train in there. I guess you could take a monorail or one of those trams around.
The LA to Vegas monorail. It's going to happen someday, I promise. But
you look kind of like you got your Steve Jobs outfit on right now.
It's just a sweater.
I know. Kind of, the way you're looking looks a little turtlenecky. I thought you were going to drop some knowledge on me over there.
No, negative. I have no knowledge. I just make it all up on the fly.
Looking styling. I like it. So let's talk some baseball. Last thing I want to do is talk about any other sport right now, Jeff. So we're going to go ahead and focus on baseball because it's the only thing I can do to keep myself sane at the moment. It is Super Bowl's over. It's a good time to talk baseball. I think a lot of people are focusing on drafts now, kind of moving towards that direction. This is kind of a day where we do a lot of that. Curious, before we get into some players, we're going to talk some corner infielders tonight, some intriguing guys at that position in the top 200. Obviously we'll do late deep sleeper, deep guys after 200 and a couple other podcasts later. We're talking about the top 200 there. But Jeff, I'm curious, how do you get ready for drafts? We always talk about, we're doing draft prep, we're doing this, we're getting ready for drafts. What does that mean for you?
So starting point for me is in the fall when I start the projections process, projections and rankings process. Next thing, and I do a couple of slow drafts. I think, one's NFBC 50. Another is a draft champions, but it's this Arizona Fall League, First Pitch Arizona Speakers League. So it's not part of the draft champions overall contest. It gets me kind of a little more equipped with the player pool. And then writing wise, another thing I do is my annual targets article, which I'm working on right now, using try to find 80th percentile, 70th and 50th for every category using the NFBC main event, TGFBI, and the online championship is a good starting point there. Doesn't apply to every format. It does, obviously because there's overall contests, so it's a little different. But I like that it's overall contests because that means there's fewer punting strategies employed. Although it does illustrate where you might want to punt in some cases.
Are you far enough along there to know just how much stolen bases went up last year and how many we need this year?
Yeah. And whether need is an interesting way of phrasing it too. In fact, I don't know if you saw my tweet today.
I did see your tweet, and I agree. You don't want to have the most stolen bases, but
you don't want to overkill.
You don't want to suck in them either. It's a tough in between there because overkill means you probably got guys who aren't hitting home runs.
So I haven't got the number on the 12 teamers yet. That's my next step. But for the main event last year, if you want to finish in the 80th percentile in stolen bases, you needed 187 stolen bases.
Wow. To
give you a point of reference, the year before, if you wanted an 80th percentile, you needed only 129 stolen bases.
That's a crazy jump.
Yeah. If you wanted to hit 50th percentile last year, it was 160 stolen bases. So 31 more than the 80th percentile. It's the running equivalent to Happy Fun Ball. But wait, there's more.
I have the online number if you want to throw it in there at the same time too.
So I don't know the online number for last year, but in previous years is the year before was 134 was the 80th percentile. What is the online?
198 last year was the 80th percentile.
Sweet sassy Molassy. That was my next thing. I ran out of time on the plane today.
That's it. I knew we all knew it'd jump, and I can remember talking on the podcast last year. We know it's going to jump, but not the 50% in the minor leagues or whatever like that. We thought it would be. That's a big percent right there. It's a huge jump. You need you lead a lot more. There's a lot more out there, but by looking at that, does it affect what you do with stolen bases? Are you going to make sure you get them early, or are you how does that make you think about drafting?
I'm glad you asked that, Scott, because the one thing I did tweet about was the top 10 in stolen bases last year in the main event. In TGFBI, it actually runs a little different, but in the main event, the top 10 in stolen bases came nowhere near cashing in the money. Not even remotely close. The best one in the top 10 was finished 250th overall. And there were a lot of them in the 700 club with me, and good players too, by the way. I won't name names because I don't think that's fair, but big names had some bad teams that had high stolen base numbers. I think it's not completely correlative. I think that it's a little bit coincidental, just the top 10 part, but because also the bottom 10 finished nowhere near the money either, which shouldn't be a surprise. But so you can't punt it in the main event. Also talk a little
top 10% or just top 10 teams?
Top 10 period. Top 10 percentile. It's still not great. There are numbers there's some double digit number finishes there, some cashes, but some cashes within leagues for sure. But it was interesting. You don't want to, and the thing is, here's the thing. The stolen bases affect one category, maybe 1 1/4, maybe a quarter are helping the runs. Does nothing for homers, RBI, or batting average. Nothing at all. It's a one-off event. Whereas a home run helps you in 4 categories. So
do you take what you learned there as those teams probably should have sat all their stolen base guys, or at least their stolen base specialists the last 6 weeks of the season?
Maybe they drafted Estuary Ruiz along with Ronald Acuna, and it was overkill, and they didn't get the power to go with it or something.
But then you just sit Ruiz or drop him the last 2 months, right?
Right, I suppose. But the thing is, I didn't. I'm just looking at the chat right now.
Sean Childs, who had Esty Ruiz in like every league, is talking about his 300 stolen bases.
I was trying not to talk about you, Sean. I love that you're listening, though. I think that's awesome.
That's
because Sean's done way more in the main event than I've ever done. So it's not a criticism of Sean.
NFBC Hall of Famer Sean Childs.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Knows way more than me about how to do well in the main event. But I'm just saying, it was great. But it's just you don't want to have overkill. Also, personal experience. This isn't an overall contest, but the RotoWire Staff Keeper League, 18 teams. I finished dead last in stolen bases and won the league. And I wasn't trying to necessarily. In fact, I traded for Starling Marte at our trade deadline. But at the same time, it's not what I wanted to do, and it's not what But the lesson learned was that it's okay if you're not amazing there. I think more than anything. Same thing with saves. I feel like you got to have them, but you don't want to overkill them. You don't want to spend. I don't want to spend 2 picks in my top 10 on closers. I'll tell you that much. The one-off categories. I'll get 1 in the top 10. I don't want to get completely left out on closers, but I also don't want to overkill there because you're costing yourselves in 4 other categories when you do that. So that's kind of my takeaway there. And stolen bases is almost the most singular event you can have. I mean, it's great for that one category, but it doesn't help you elsewhere.
Would you like the flip side?
Yeah, I know you had a team that was one of the bottom in stolen bases.
Yep. The flip side is
overall.
I finished 57th overall, I believe, with 55 points overall in stolen bases.
I saw that. I did see that.
And I lost my league by, I think, 2 points on the last day or whatever it was, and I had 2 points in stolen bases. So you don't want overkill, but you certainly don't want underkill either. Is underkill a word? I don't know if it is, but you don't want that. I had my lowest category last year. I'm looking at it right now. ERA was 525 points in the main event, except for stolen bases, 55. Like that's rough right there. That's there are certainly extremes. You don't want to be in either one, I think, is the key here.
Yeah. Well, get the first pick and it's not a problem.
Get the first pick and it is not a problem. That is true. We're going to talk about some guys. Might be the middle infielder show next week. We're going to talk about some guys that might solve those problems too. There's a lot of big chunk stolen base guys if you don't get Acuna. So there are ways to deal with it, but I think I've learned that I don't want to leave the early rounds without any. I don't want to have to hunt them down in terms of a big guy.
Right.
I want to be able to have some early so I can get 10 and 12 and 15 and 20 guys, not have to get try and find the 60, 70 guy, which you can find, but it's hard to find. A lot of times they bust and they don't do anything else either.
Which, by the way, has always been our lesson.
Always been a lesson.
Always has been our lesson. Avoid the Billy Hamiltons of the world. Delano DeShields Jr., Malik Smith. Yep. We've all had our ghosts in there at some point in time.
And I think the key theory is that you don't want those guys in the 6th, 7th, 8th round when they get pushed up. If you grab one of those guys, I had I think the first year you and I played in the main event, I had Michael Bourne in the 16th round. That turned out great because there's just in the 16th round, like a guy that doesn't do much but steal a bunch of bases, that can work. It's the 7th round to line out of Shields when you're panicking and he doesn't do anything that just kills you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So
you do your projections, you write your articles. How do you get ready for a main event like NFBC? Like what goes on? Are you just off your projections? That's your rankings and you're good to go, or where do you kind of fine tune?
No, well, like I said, I did those first 2 drafts, and that battle test my projections. Yeah. And oh crap, I'm way too high on this guy, or oh god, I totally underestimated this, but yet who is this person that's going at pick 300? And why don't I have him there? Oh, right. Better look into that a little bit more. All of these things are true. No, but then there's news that happens, and there's also it's impossible. I want to say I want to have all my own opinions. I don't want to I want to do my own work. It's not that I dislike anybody else's work. It's not that at all. So I don't want to copy their work.
Yeah,
I want to come up with my own opinions, but it's impossible. I'm on Twitter too much, and I respect all these great opinions. Right. There's so much good work being done out there, and I see some of that out there, and I have to read it. And then, oh yeah, okay. Brendan Tuma the other day wrote about Nick Pivetta. I'm like, that looks to be pretty. That looks like a pretty good point. I'm going to move him up a little bit. Things like that. And a lot of people have been doing this since before the season ended. Even, don't call it a mock. Rob DiPietro's way too early meatball draft, not a mock draft. I'm making a point of that. He's always grinding. And how do I keep up with that when I'm doing football? I don't know, but I learned from that though too. But I also want to do that. But I get exposed to certain things. I'll read up more on a player. I'll find a certain nugget. I'm like, oh yeah, that's persuasive to me. Or I'll look at a player and I'll dig in on the stats a little bit more. And I'll change my projection some or change my rank. And I'll figure out where I'm missing too. I think that's the key. It's not just identifying the players. It's also knowing draft pockets.
Yeah, I think that's important. It's for me, it's not only looking at the players, but it's looking at the overall pool. And like you said, pockets. Like if I think a key to the draft, and I don't do as in-depth projections as you do, or a lot of the really, really, really smart people that I listen to podcasts, listen to people, and I don't even know how I compete with these people, but what I do like to do is I got to be able to adapt in the draft. I think a lot of people, the best thing I do best is, if I need steals, I usually know where pockets are. If I need saves, I know where pockets. I know where I like guys. If I don't get a shortstop early, I know that the 3 guys in round 14 that I like. So I think that being flexible in the draft is probably what I do better than the number crunching and spreadsheets and regression analysis, which I'm not very good at. Right. And I fully admit that there are people who do that way better than me, way smarter than me, and I probably will struggle to compete with those people as they get better and better. You look at someone like Phil Dussault and runs his model and stuff. I mean, he's gonna be at the draft table and he's gonna have better info than I am. It's just gonna be the way it is. So I have to kind of adapt in the draft. I obviously do. I think what you said before about not liking others' opinions but wanting to have your own is really important because as we do the podcast during the year, I try not to listen to too much right before we do a podcast because I never want to have someone else's idea in my head and do the same thing when I draft. I don't look at projections until I kind of look at a player's Fangraphs or StatCast, their Baseball Savant, whatever it may be. And then when I kind of have my opinion, I'll look over and maybe see if my opinion's way off or maybe I missed something. And I think that looking at projections and looking at news and looking at articles and, the blurb in the forecast or the blurb on the RotoWire player page, that sort of thing. I think I kind of look at that at the end and it helps me to see it. There are times I miss something and there are times when I don't see a stat or I don't see a fly ball rate or something that changed in the second half. And I think that I try and develop my own opinions and then just let it morph a little bit as we go along rather than letting it determine what I do.
Yeah, that's right. And let's bring the elephant in the room. Every fantasy analyst worth his salt, decries the use of ADP. But let's face it, it's there. It's in our face in the draft room.
And it's way better than it ever is. It's better every year. There are ADP 10 years ago, I can remember doing it. I remember sitting with a couple guys in the NFBC. We're like, let's put the 4 DCs we did together and an OC that we did, and let's make our own ADP because it wasn't on the site. I remember doing it. We have 8 drafts in here. These are really good numbers. And now it's you click on it, you can go by date, you can pick your contest. These are all people that are these are all the people that are paying to play. So you can decry ADP all you want, but these people are playing a play that nobody knows what to talk about. There are numbers off, and there's ADPs where I look at them like there's no way. There's a middle infield we're talking about next week that I think this ADP is crazy, but there are those numbers are really good, and you have to know what they are because if you love somebody and they don't go till pick 100 normally, you shouldn't take them pick 40. Maybe pick 75. You want to make sure you get them. But I think you have to. You don't want to use ADP as your draft sheet, but you sure as heck want to know where it is as you make picks.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And moreover, I mean, the players that we're playing against are better than ever too.
There is no doubt about that. I really think that's the biggest thing. I think that winning in a main event is harder than it was 5 years ago and way harder than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's this follows the evolution of poker, right? More informed, more technically savvy. Not as old as I am, so they're not as forgetful. They're all of these things are true. Granted, I mean, I still think there are problems with ADP in certain instances. I think one thing that it doesn't do a good job of encapsulating is like draft position. If you're drafting on one of the ends, I mean, ADP is less useful. I think because you got to get your guy more often than not. And if you do that, then you're throwing off the ADP a little bit too. So I think that's interesting. But I mean, I think there's a lot of valuable information, especially I think early on. I think it's helpful when you're still trying to figure out some draft pockets and things of that nature. I think the later we get in the draft season, the more we like our guys, the more we're set on the players we're set on. It's going to be less important. And you'll see that in main events too, where people start striking out a little bit more and being a little more courageous in taking their players, getting their guys.
And I think you also get to the point in March where everybody is prepped and they know who they like. I think a lot of times in November, December, January, you're like, I don't know who I fully love yet, but let me kind of figure that out. People figure it out as they go along. Everybody in March knows who their guys are. Everybody in March knows who they want to target. Everybody in March knows who they have to pick up and push up 2 rounds to get. And you're right. There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of AB that's still valuable in there, but it goes in like the live drafts in Vegas. A lot of that gets tossed out the window. If I really want someone, I'm going way earlier in a draft like that than I would in a regular draft, a DC or even an online main. I think that the Vegas main, people love to say their guy's name out loud.
I think that's true. I think that's true. And I think there are some that love setting early min picks. Some that love saying, I can't believe I got him this late. And by the way, I might fall in the latter category. And I will say that it hasn't actually worked out that well for me.
I would say the time that ADP hurts me is when I find myself, I've done the research. I don't like someone at ADP or really like their profile, and I take them anyway because, oh my gosh, he's 30 picks past ADP. Now is the time to take him, and he doesn't do well, and that's the most frustrating miss to me.
Yeah, and then then right after that, you miss out on a player you do like because you took the bargain.
Right. And everyone, I'm sure we remember the times the bargain don't work out and the time we're like, oh, well, that worked out really well. But if you don't like a player, I mean, there's always a spot you'll take them, but don't just do it because it's 20 picks past. Like there's a spot you'll take somebody, but if you've done your research and your work, you got to trust that at some point.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not very fun. Like it's just the fun part for me is identifying someone, finding them, and having them work out. And that's the fun part. It's the fun part of this game is being right on somebody that you kind of discovered.
Yep, that's right.
So let's talk some corner infielders. I think we'll kind of, as we go along here, we'll do as we go along through the preseason, we'll do some strategy talk, we'll do some positions, we'll do some post 200, we'll do some starting pitching bargains, we'll do all kinds of stuff. But let's talk about corners. But first, a note from our sponsors at Fantrax. Fantrax is the most customizable fantasy platform in the industry, offering the greatest fantasy experience for your dynasty, keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. Coming from another service, Fantrax makes that easy as well. Fantrax can import any of your current leagues and customize if needed. Fantrax offers the most in-depth player pool in the industry, including minor league players. Do you need a customizable commissioner service for your fantasy league? Fantrax offers more customization than any other platform. Waivers, different categories, scoring system. You can play different schedules, dynasty leagues, whatever it may be. Fantrax offers custom solutions for all that and more. And it's all free. Sign up for free today and get entered to win an official Major League Baseball signed jersey from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Sign up to fantrax.com/RotoWire and sign up today. That's fantrax.com/RotoWire. Fantrax, the home of fantasy sports. So, Jeff, I picked out some names as I was going through kind of studying the corners of names that I kind of thought were interesting. I'm going to jump around. I'm going to start at the top of ADP, but kind of jump through. We'll do first baseman and third baseman as we go along here. I'm using the last 30 days of ADP. I did it a couple days ago, so it might be a number or two off, but really close. First guy I want to talk about, Pete Alonso is an interesting one. His ADP is about 27, 28, somewhere in there. Another huge power year, 46 home runs, 118 RBI. But man, Pete Alonso hit 271 in 2022 and 217 last year. BABIP killed his season. He had a 205 BABIP last year. Pretty crazy. But there's a little bit more there too than just the BABIP. Hard hit rate fell under 40%. The K's popped back up a little bit to 23%. The barrel rate's still really good. He hits a lot of fly balls, so you're going to get the home runs. What do you feel about Alonso at the price? 28 is a second round pick in a 15-teamer, a third round in a 12-teamer. Obviously the BABIP's coming back a little bit, but what do you feel about him at the price, which it was a pretty steep one?
My price is actually at 24, at least according to my projections. And I actually might have even had him a little higher before. But here's the thing, the BABIP hurt him, but you know what really hurt him? Getting hurt, breaking a wrist, and coming back after like 12 days or 10 days. It was a bone bruise and a sprain in his left wrist. That's what was official. He was terrible after he came back from the injury. Terrible.
Probably not fun to hit 97 in when you have a sprained wrist.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to correlate the two. I mean, and he still hit 46 homers.
Yeah,
despite all that. He does strike out a lot, and I will say this is one thing. It's a trade-off. If you're going to draft Pete Alonso in the second round, you're not getting any speed, and you might be putting batting average at risk. These are two things that are true. We just talked about, how many stolen bases we needed last year. Right. Talked about, it's tough to spend an early draft pick knowing you might hurt your batting average. So I get the people that don't want to take him in that range. I also find you can't have enough power. I mean, if you start, I guess it kind of depends. If say you start off Corbin Carroll in the first round, Alonso's a nice match for that.
Yeah. And that's a good point. Picking in the first couple rounds, like you want those picks to match up a little bit. You've got, you match up really well with Carroll. Probably matches up well with Julio. He matches up well with anybody that kind of a speed power guy, but Carroll especially true because you're probably gonna get more speed than power. But I mean, there's no bigger. If you had to pick locks for 42 home runs, like Alonso's probably top 3 on that list, along with probably Ohtani and Matt Olson, maybe something like that. But I mean, that's you're talking the mid 40 home runs. He's probably the most likely the guy to land in there. I think the injury point is really important because if without that injury, you look at the hard contact, and that's concerning. I mean, under 50 percentile hard contact for Pete Alonso is what's going on here? But if he hits the injury, then suddenly he's a guy that can flip that back pretty quick. I mean, hard contact was not a problem for him the year before. He was 75th percentile. Barrel is 86th percentile in 2022. So I don't know if I'm taking him in the second round, but I think that the injury point you make is the key to me. I think that we saw that this is still a stud, and probably the injury just killed a lot of his stats last year.
It did. I'll say this though too. You got to believe that the injury is a big driver of that sunken batting average because otherwise he's Kyle Schwarber, who you're getting at pick 80.
True.
And granted, from a different position, but if you're going to get low average power, you might as well take Schwarber.
I mean, he had 271 in 2022. He had 262 in 2021. I mean, a 205 BABIP is just such an extreme,
seems like an outlier. Yeah,
it's like a 5th percentile outlook. I mean, it's so low, and I just think for me is all the hard contact under 40%. It's a big flag to me, except for the fact that he had a wrist injury. I think you just can't swing and hit the ball as hard as you want to. The barrel rate was still there, 14.7%. I think he's a power lock, and I think he's more likely to hit 250 than 217 again.
And there's a chance he gets traded. And I think that typically bodes well. He may not want to get traded, and so it might not be great, but ballpark-wise, it's definitely good.
What are the Mets doing?
Good question.
Do we know?
Excellent question, my friend.
Usually we know, trying to win, trying not to win, clearly tanking. The thing with Alonso, he's a free agent after this year. So if they're not contending on July 15th, that's a huge trade target, right?
Right.
Because he's even if you want him back, you just can trade him and sign him back. But I don't know. The Mets, you hear the things they're trying to compete in a year or two, and that's kind of weird. But I don't know what they're doing either.
Yeah, I mean, our most recent note on him is no extensions forthcoming. I think a trade is almost likely unless the Mets get off to a great start, which they could. But
but you look at their lineup and rotation, it does not look like they are remotely close to contending.
Yeah, they have a lot of threes in that rotation. And Senga, who's awesome.
I would say, do they, or do they have 4s and 5s?
Yeah. Okay, they have a 1 and a 4.
I mean, if you
have Lindor, this is a weird team. I mean, they've got Lindor. Yeah, they got some pretty bad starting pitching. They've got Nimmo, who looks like he could be cleared. It looks like he's gonna be clear. They've got these young guys too, Beatty and Vientos, that could be really good. After how many times do we see players struggle in the rookie year and then have a really big second year?
I like Vientos a lot. When we talk about guys later in the draft, I mean, 51% hard hit rate last year and 230 plate appearances, a pretty good chunk of time. So a decent sample. Strikes out too much. There's no doubt about that. But like a late power guy, I think he's going to run into 20 plus home runs if he plays. And I assume he plays. There's no reason for him not to play.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The other thing too is, I mean, they've got Diaz back this year. How many games did they blow from their bullpen too last year? I mean, that's kind of dumb luck sometimes, when you have these late blown leads and all that. It's not all dumb luck, you know what I mean? But same time, I mean, I think it's probably a better bullpen. Senga, Quintana can be okay. Minaya, I don't know, maybe not. Severino, I mean, there's a lot of if you squint, you can see the upside type of guys.
I was about to make fun of you for saying that being Quintana, and his ERA the last 2 years has been actually been really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Severino was considered a stud at one point. He wasn't obviously last year, and he may never ever bounce back. We'll see. Francisco Alvarez hit for a ton of power, really tanked in the second half, but he could take another leap up. I mean, this isn't a terrible roster.
You're right. You can squint and see a team that's 500 at the break and has a chance.
I think better than that.
Yeah,
I think better than that. They're not. Maybe John says they're the new A's. Maybe not the last 2 years A's, but maybe before the A's that were always hovering around contention. Maybe, but
who are these A's you speak of?
The team that is going to go back to Oakland after Vegas rejects them.
They're not coming back. I think go to Salt Lake City or something. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, I hear that's where they're thinking about playing their games in 25.
The Vegas thing is such a mess. It is such a mess.
I've been reading up on it. It's crazy.
It breaks my heart. Let me tell you, Jeff. I really feel bad for him.
Sell the team.
Let's talk about an interesting, fun guy here about pick 50, Royce Lewis in Minnesota, who seemingly hit a grand slam every day in the last month last year. It was crazy that stretch he was on. But 309, 15 home runs, 52 RBI last year, 6 stolen bases. I think the thing with Lewis is, can he stay healthy? He's had a bunch of injury issues, but hits the ball pretty hard, 41.5% hard hit rate. Barrel rate was good at 11.7%. Solid K rate for a young guy, 23%. Not a big number, not one you worry about. He ran some of the minors. I assume the big running game is probably gone with all these injuries, and they want him to hit. They probably don't really want him to run. He's a polarizing one here because he's probably the 3-4 turn, especially by the time we come to main event. He's going to get pushed up a little bit. He'll be a sexy name. I wonder if he has to steal bases a little bit to earn that price, though.
Yeah, he stole 6 though in 58 games, so he can. If he steals, I've got him for 11 in my projections. ATC's got him for 13. I think some of that's projection time based, but the question for me is how much playing time does he get? How healthy can he be? I think, if he's healthy as a horse, then I think he'll run. If not, then he could get you 1 stolen base. I mean, that's the problem. He could get hurt again, and they could say, "Okay, you're getting the Buxton treatment. You're not running anymore." That's definitely in the range of outcomes.
What's your home run projection on him? Because he had 15 in 58 games last year. He was on fire in the second half.
It's a little modest, actually. 24 in 124 games.
That kind of lines up with most of the stuff I've seen. I think that Steamer has him like 29, but everybody seems to be in the mid-20s.
Yeah. Again, and I only have him for 124 games, so
I don't think. But like what you just said, I don't think 25 and 12. And he hits 265 works at that price.
I've got him at 285.
All right. That works a little bit more, but I still think
he hit 309 last year.
354 BABIP. Maybe 285 does work.
Yeah. He could
make
he could stand to make a little more
12
contact.
Is like I don't know if that works at that price. I really like the player. I just I'm a little wary at the price, to be honest.
I get it. I think my price is like a half round behind him, but that gets him sometimes, exit velocity
probably doesn't get him at the live draft table. I think somebody's going to want to say that name out loud too.
It could be, especially if he's ripping it up in spring.
Yeah.
I think if he's like crushing it in spring and running, and more importantly, if he's running in spring, Yeah, then you're going to see him in the third round.
Because if he steals 18 bases, then I think suddenly you've got a freaking stud in your hands, and he's got that in his game. I just don't know if he'll do it with all the injuries he's had the last few years.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
I don't know if they just want. I don't even know if they want him to do it. Like, is it worth? I mean, he's so valuable to them. He's going to hit in the middle order for them. They've been leg injuries too. Like, I just worry that fantasy wise, if I were the Twins, I probably wouldn't want him stealing 20.
Rocco is not a big stolen base guy too. That's the other thing. Third base is not super deep though. So that might be like a point in favor of kind of pushing him up in that fourth round. I think it's get him in the fourth round, fine. Don't push to get him in the third. I don't know, but that seems like a silly rule to me. I don't know. It's one way, but let's look at
it depends. That depends what you're picking too. Like, if you're in the middle of the draft, that's a lot of spots. If you're in if you're the start of the draft, that's not very many spots.
I mean, after him, it kind of drops off there.
If you're at the back of the draft, that's not many spots.
Yeah, after him at third base, it kind of drops off. Like Jose Ramirez, Austin Riley, Devers, Gunnar, Ellie's gone. Ellie qualifies there. He's going to be gone by then. Machado, I don't know what people are going to do with him. I think I've got him ranked higher than where he goes sometimes. Not sure about it.
That's like a 15 to 20 spot drop between Lewis and Machado.
Yeah, I think I have Machado over Lewis, so there you go. But
there's only 7 third basemen in the top 80 of the draft.
Yeah, but that's kind of my point too.
Yeah.
There's a drop off there. What do you do with like someone like Spencer Steer or
Oh, we're getting there, Jeff. We're getting
there. I know. I'm spitballing, but point is you're right. It's almost scarcer than second or short. Maybe not second, but point is it's worth kind of considering the like I want to make sure I get one of the better third basemen because I don't love too many of them later.
Yeah, that does make sense. Next guy on my list is someone who doesn't have a team yet, which is kind of wild. But this has been a weird baseball offseason. It's just weird how baseball does. Like the NBA and the NFL, like free agent signing day is this huge deal. Like everybody signs within 5 minutes of the deadline, it seems like, and they make it a huge deal. We've had like 5 months in baseball, and then Cody Bellinger's not signed. Blake Snell's not signed. Jordan Montgomery's not signed. It's really strange. We're like, we see clips of Ohtani hitting home runs in camp. Like these guys
there's like 9 legitimate major leaguers still unsigned right now. It's
so strange.
Yeah, depending on how you classify Tim One Home Run Anderson as a legitimate major leaguer.
I think you know exactly where I classify Tim Anderson.
Yeah, I know you do. I know. That was done for dramatic purpose, but like JD Martinez is unsigned.
Yeah, what a huge year.
Jorge Soler is unsigned.
Huge year also. I read a quote today that he and the Giants are in a staring match right now.
What the hell does that mean?
I have no idea. It sounded fun though.
Yeah, I mean the Giants should be signing Bellinger, or the Cubs should, one of the two, but. I think 3 of those guys are Boris clients, which might explain some of it. But come on, I mean, this used to be when we did the magazine. It was go to press like a week ago. We'd be at the industry conference, sweating it out, hoping that they'd sign so we could get them in the magazine. Yep. Now there's like 9 or 10 guys.
So let's talk about Bellinger. Obviously, he had a huge bounce back. He left the Dodgers, hit 210 that year after hitting 165 in 2021. Big year with the Cubs, and it is a full change of everything that he did. He hit 307, 26 home runs, 20 stolen bases, but 12% last year. He went from 27.3% to 15.6%. But he did it. You can see he changed everything he did. I mean, his hard hit rate was went from 38% to 31%. He is a 10th percentile hard hit rate guy last year. He is a 28th percentile barrel guy, 6%. He dropped his swinging strike rate from 12% to 9%. Like you can actually look at his numbers and see that he changed his approach. Sometimes you can't tell with guys, and BABIP changes stuff and stuff moves around, but you can very much tell that he very much tried to not strike out. He tried to make contact. He tried to put the ball in play. I think he probably heard about hitting 165 and 210 for 2 years and heard about that. He had a 319 BABIP, which was his career high, but that's not a huge number that makes up the batting average. But you look at a StatCast page kind of guy, you look at everything, it's pretty blah. So does he sign and start to hit home runs again? Does he sign and start to keep this approach? Does he sign and strike out a little bit more? What do you think happens with Bellinger? Because his ADP is 55 right now, and just the unknown on him makes me think that I'm just going to take somebody else in the 4th round.
He was a perfect take the discount guy last year and a perfect, I don't know what the hell he's going to do this year sort of guy. So I'll probably let somebody else pay that price. my inclination is to. Well, I don't know. I mean, ADP isn't that crazy. Like he's 55. I guess that is kind of. I'm talking in circles here. Bear with me for a sec. I think I'd probably wait at least 10 picks beyond ADP, but I wouldn't wait. I wouldn't mind taking him. If he signs with the Cubs, I'm going to go after him.
Yeah, I should say that like a lot depends on where he signs. I mean, he could sign.
Yeah, if he signs with the Giants, I'm going to wait to like pick 100. Yeah. Maybe more.
If he signs with the Reds, then that's a completely different thing because you got the ballpark. I mean, I'm using the Reds example. I know they're not going to spend the money. But
why the hell would they sign him? I mean,
I'm using a crazy ballpark example as an extreme example. If he signs with the Rockies or something, but as it is a neutral park, whatever. I just think there's too much. Like I just don't know what we're getting, and that's not what I want to do in the fourth round.
I think that's fair. I think that's a fair construction. He's capable of being a first round player, though. I mean,
absolutely.
We've seen it.
But I don't know. 26-20 and hit 307 and had 95 runs and 97 RBIs last year. He was a monster.
Yeah, but I think I'm probably inclined to needing a discount on him, but not being afraid of taking the discount. How about that?
I think that's a fair statement. That's good to know that it's not someone you don't want. It's just someone you want maybe a little bit later. That's good. Let's jump back a little ways. You mentioned there's some few guys in the middle. There's some boring guys in the middle. I think we kind of know what they're going to do. Machado, Goldschmidt, Christian Walker, Bregman, Arenado. I want to talk about a few of the younger, more kind of sexy, interesting guys a little bit behind them. We've got three of them in a row. We've got Triston Casas, we got Spencer Steer, and we got Josh Jung. Talking about Casas in Boston first. Really strong first full year in the majors, 263, 24 home runs. His K rate was 25%. I think he's one of those guys that we're going to see a first time through the majors thing, and he's going to adjust that. His strikeout numbers were lower in the minors. I think that's going to bounce down. I like the Ks to come down. The K rate was still really strong. We knew he's an OBP guy, 13.9% walk rate, really good there. Good hard hit rate, really good barrel rate, 86th percentile there. Look at his StatCast page, kind of the opposite of Bellinger. You look at it, everything jumps off in bright red. Mm-hmm. His ADP is about 103, so we're talking like the 7-8 turn to 15-teamer. You're getting 0 stolen bases, so you have to consider that. But
right.
He's someone that I do really like at that price. If I've got enough stolen bases where I could take someone like this.
He doesn't grade out well in projection systems, and because of the 0 stolen bases. I mean, I think it's not just you're not going to get many. It's
0,
none.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing. If you like Triston Casas, and I do, I like him. I love him in AL Tout Wars where it's OBP instead of batting average, especially.
Sure.
But if you like him there, you better get your stolen bases early. Then that's the one where you have to kind of plan ahead. Like, okay, I'm going to pass on Alonso. I'm going to pass on this other early first baseman because I know I'm going to get Casas. I'm going to make sure I get my stolen bases. Somewhere you're going to get some pitching in there too. By the way,
at least it's a corner, so it's a spot where you can probably stomach, a 0 stolen base guy. But I think he's going to get better too. I think the strikeouts going to come down. I think the batting average is going to go up. I just love his approach, and the hard contact's really good. 13% barrel rate. I mean, it's so good. I think he becomes like a 30 home run, 90 RBI, 275 gun. I really like that at the price.
Yeah. I think so too. What I think, I was talking about like the range in your draft. You don't want to be in a position where you really like a guy, but you can't take him because of the way your roster is constructed.
Yep.
I think that's the best way. So knowing that, this is pushing me towards wanting to get those stolen bases earlier. Maybe that means I don't take Pete Alonso at my price. Maybe just because I know that consequence. Because I don't want to have to be, well, first of all, it's that position. But I don't want to, don't want to miss out on players that I've kind of targeted just because of this. And especially first baseman, that's always the case, right? That's the position most like that and catcher, the most positions most likely where you're going to get the 0 there. So if you like a later first baseman, unless you're filling up your corners early, don't take an earlier first baseman.
So that's a really good segue into our next guy here because he is a corner infielder with some stolen bases. It's your friend in Cincinnati, Spencer Steer. 15 stolen bases last year. He's eligible at first and third. Is he eligible in the outfield?
Outfield too.
Outfield, yeah. That's what I thought. So
and that's his position now.
Yeah,
and that's where he's going to be playing is the outfield. So they signed Candelario for reasons, and
I really don't get why they signed Candelario, but reasons is works. But Steer's interesting to me because you look and it's stolen bases that are propping his price up. Stolen bases at a corner is really nice. I think you probably play him at third base. We talked about third base, probably the weakest of those three positions. But having the guy that can play, third, first, corner, and outfield is really valuable. 50 stolen bases is good there. He's a solid strikeout guy, 21%. He walks a good amount, 10% there. Obviously, has the best home park for home runs in the league, which is helps for a guy that really doesn't have a lot of hard contact. The hitting metrics do not love him. He's a 26th percentile hard hit, 32nd percentile barrel guy. But so the park is someone that helps someone like that. Statcast page is unimpressive. There's no doubt about that. But the home park's nice. The stolen bases are nice. The corner, all the eligibility is nice. You're the Reds fan. Tell me what you think about Steer at the ADP 105.
So I got into a discussion on Twitter, and I'll find it to get proper attribution. But
it's never a good idea to get a discussion on Twitter, Jeff.
No, baseball player discussions are fine. Yeah, the thing is, and the problem is that searching your history is just worthless now because of all the bots that follow and like old posts and things like that. It's just
I get the most random bots on liking things from 6 months ago that wasn't even worth likable. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing. It's bad enough to get the porn bots. Now you're getting the gambling bots too. So I hate those even more. Point is, I'm higher than these guys were on Steer, and it made me think about him a little bit more.
I'd like you to tell me why, because I am not high. That wasn't high enough when I first looked.
Yeah, it's the park contest. It's the three positions. It's the fact that I'm getting some bags there.
Yeah,
I think he's going to play. I know last year he wasn't as challenged as much for playing time. If he slumps, he will get challenged more for playing time because the Reds are kind of producing hitters out of their ears. And that's a good problem to have. But I also kind of think that he's kind of made now in Cincy too. So we'll see. Maybe he's not going to
play. He plays left field.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And he's the only right-handed hitter among their outfielders too, really. So,
because I think their infield is stacked, but their outfield's a little less stacked. Does that be a fair statement?
It is, but yet there's still squeeze in the outfield too, because there's Friedel, there's Fraley, there's Benson, and Steer. First base DH is kind of, in second base are all kind of clogged up. McLean's at second more often. India just signed a 2-year deal, but it's like 2 years and $8 million, so it's not really that prohibitive.
Is Encarnacion Strand not even a starter right now then?
That is the debate, and I'd be super angry if that's the case. But Candelario is there. Encarnacion Strand needs to play. Marte's coming off a Winter League injury. I don't know if maybe that opens up some playing time somehow, somewhere. Yeah. Ellie is probably got only a 5% chance of getting sent down, but it's there.
Is it really 5%?
Maybe it's 2%. But the point is, if he slumps as badly as he did the last 2 months of the season, they have alternatives.
But that has to happen in the first 3 weeks of the season, not in spring training, correct?
Yeah.
He can't. He can't lose that job in spring training, right?
I mean, if he's striking out against everybody in spring training, why would you think he wouldn't strike out in the regular season?
Yeah, I just didn't know. I didn't know. You're the Reds guy. I just didn't know if they'd give him a 6-week runway no matter what.
I think it's less likely that he slumps in spring training, though. I mean, at the same time, because
we're gonna talk about him. I put him in the middle back, but he's the guy that I think the ADP.
Oh, I know. Everybody's talking about it.
But the ADP still stays there. I can't fathom taking him at pick 24.
It's because Bobby Witt did what he did last year, and you don't want to miss on that, right?
The talent is sky high.
I mean, we've all seen the pure sprint speed, the pure power. I mean, it's there, it's palpable. We've also seen him adjust at the minor league level too.
Yeah, we're also not playing in the Dynasty League, though. He has to do it this year, and
I'm aware of that.
Those strikeouts are massive.
And you can look at my rankings, and he's below ADP. I'll just say that.
Man, he's fun though.
He is. I want to root for him, but maybe not on my roster.
Cannon too, by the way.
Yes, it's all fun.
Yeah, but yeah, you look at their infield. I mean, it's really crowded. The Candelario signing really kind of pushed everybody to. There's an extra guy in there, and it's tough to figure out. Someone's gonna have to sit, whether it's Marte or CES or India. Someone's got to sit, right? It's not gonna be India. He just signed a deal, like you said.
Well, it might be like a trade-friendly deal. That's the thing. Encarnacion Strand is so good that I'm going to be angry if they bench him, let alone set him down, because he's just too good. He's better. He's a better hitter than India right now. He's a better hitter than I think he's a better hitter than Candelario right now. We'll see. I mean, India was really good in his rookie year, and he's been hurt a lot, and that impacts his production. That he's a leader, blah blah blah. Encarnacion Strand can just rake.
Yeah, I mean,
and Marte can rake.
He came up, and CES came up and hit. Like, he hit 270, 13 home runs, hit the ball hard. I know he struck out too much. That'll probably adjust second time through. Like, I think you just let the dude play. Like, he's one of your 9 best hitters. Let's let him play.
Thank you. Thank you. That's my approach. And I'm drafting him, by the way.
So. Oh, well, I like that. What is I don't even know what his CES is. His ADP is 142. That's not that cheap. I thought it was a little bit further down. No. Yeah.
It's not.
He's got to play for that price. He's got to play almost every day for that price.
Yeah.
This other guy in this range here, Josh Jung in Texas, had a nice year. 223 home runs, 70 RBIs, hit 266. Another guy, really nice hard hit rate, nice barrel rate, hits the ball hard. A lot of those hitting stats all look really good. The strikeout issues are there still, although he dropped them. His first cup of coffee in the majors, he really struck out a ton. It was like 38%. It was like Joey Gallo level. He went down to 29% last year, which is still way too high, but you could see the adjustments being made. Doesn't walk a ton, so batting average is always going to be a little bit of risk with a lot of strikeouts and not many walks. Another guy, the StatCast page is really nice. I think the power's there, the power's real. He's at the same price. These guys are all in the same spot: 104, 106, and 102. Casas, Steer, and Josh Jung. How do you feel about Josh Jung? We're talking about kind of the 3 guys in this range.
I think he's at price. I think that's about where he should go. Again, minimal. Is this a scintilla more of stolen base potential than Casas, less than Steer, obviously. I think there's higher power upside with Josh Jung. I think there's a universe where he hits 35. I don't think Steer has that universe. Casas might. Casas has the best batting eye of the 3.
If you're at this turn and you need a first baseman or a corner infielder or whatever you need here, which of the 3 is the top of your list?
You got to make me choose.
I'm going to have to make you choose.
I know.
You want me to choose first?
I think
I'm Casas, Jung, Steer in that order.
Okay. I think that's what most people are going to end up going. I think I might go Jung first, but
all right. No. Okay.
But I can see it. I think Steer probably is 3rd. Just because of the risk. I think Casas and Jung have no real threat on playing time.
Yeah.
Steer has less initial pedigree. I think Steer also, I remember the gist of the Steer conversation is he outperformed his expectations and also and then maybe early ADP is outpacing later ADP. We'll see about that. I think Steer might start to drop a little bit. We'll see.
Except I think you're going to have that team then that spot is like, ooh, I need a corner and I need steals, and then he kind of works out too. So I think that team context is going to matter in there, but without in a vacuum, I'd go that order. But
yeah,
it's an interesting range, and you kind of got the kind of the 4th guy right at the end of this range. I want to talk was another young guy, Spencer Torkelson. ADP is 118. Rough first half, rough first year in 2022, but he really turned it on the second half last year. Finished with 31.94. He was kind of quiet because he was in Detroit, and he did it late in the year, kind of struggled early. But man, this is a guy who just massive hard contact, 50.5% hard hit rate, 14% rail rate. I mean, the power is absolutely legit, and a 25% strikeout rate. He's lower than some of these other guys we talked about that are really, really high. 25% is, you'd like to see it come down a little bit, but that's fairly workable. The interesting thing with him is you look at the StatCast numbers, he's 80th percentile in chase rate on the positive. So he's like, he doesn't chase after pitches, and he's only 52% whiff rate. So I think this strikeouts actually might improve. The fact he doesn't chase, I like that a lot. His expected batting average on StatCast here was 253. You take that over the 233, and suddenly you get 250 with 30 and 90. We're talking a really good player here. ADP is 118. I think that there's a floor here. Actually, there's a ceiling here too. I really like Torkelson this year. I liked him last year, and I like him more this year, obviously.
Yeah, I might be a little under on him. He played 159 games last year, which is going to kind of throw off a little bit there.
He had 684 plate appearances. Wow.
Yeah. And I think Todd Zola was talking about this last year, that a lot of people accumulate a ton of plate appearances, more than you expected and how that might affect projections going forward. Torkelson's a perfect example of that. I mean, is he going to stay that healthy going forward? I don't know. I might discount him a little bit on that. I've got him at 238. That might be a little ungenerous given his second half. I think you're right. If he hits 250, he's worth it.
Yeah.
He's also capable of hitting 220, though. I mean, that's the one thing I don't. I mean, he might have turned enough of a corner there that I might be a little ungenerous. But his contact percentage actually went down last year from his rookie year, just ever so slightly. K rate actually went 24.5 to 25%.
Yeah, it was up a little bit.
Yeah, and you're not getting leg hits out of him.
No, he's never going to be a high BABIP guy. You're not. I mean, another guy that you're getting no stolen bases out of. He had 3 last year, but 3 might end up his career high. He's not going to steal many more than that. I just think this is. I mean, he's 24. He's a first overall pick. I mean, this is a stud pedigree guy that came on late last year, was raking, and he hits the ball so hard. I think he's just going to fall into 30 home runs, and if he can just figure out the strikeouts a little bit, he doesn't chase. I really like that. I think 250, 255 is in play. And I think he smokes his ADP if he hits 255.
Yeah. Home park still crushes him, though. At home,
tough.
11 homers at home, hit 219 at home last year. That's problematic because still gets to play half his games at home, balanced schedule or not.
Yep. That is true. That center and right center field is massive at that park.
Yeah.
Let's jump back a little bit with a few more guys before we jump out of here. A couple guys in the same-ish range, 155. Jake Berger had a big breakout last year. 34 home runs, 80 RBIs, and 540 plate appearances. Another guy with huge hard contact numbers. He was a 16.7% barrel rate last year, just a huge number there. About a 50% hard hit rate. A ton of swing and miss, though. He's a 17% swing strike rate guy, 28% strikeout rate. He never walks, so it's really gonna be tough. That 250 batting average is probably. I think that's gonna be a little bit high. I think he might even drop down from that. The power looks very, very real. Maybe he figured something out. He did drop the K rate in the second half. He only has a 22% strikeout rate in the second half, so maybe he figured something out. It's always dangerous to just look at a half and kind of break that out, but maybe he figured something out. ADP is 154. What say you on Berger in that range?
It's about the right range for me.
I started looking at him. I'm like, there's no way I'm taking him at 154. And I looked a little closer, and I think all the power. I mean, you have to kind of fit what you do, but I think the power is really real.
I mean, he had 34 homers.
Yeah.
I mean, has to be real, right?
Yeah.
He slugged 505 with Miami. The batting average took off for him there, and I don't think that's necessarily sustainable. But I think the power is legit.
Yeah, I do too. Everything I looked at, I mean, you just look at. You want to talk StatCast page? He's all bright red. He hits everything hard. I think you just know exactly what you're getting. I think you're going to get 30, 35 home runs. You're probably going to get 240. And if that works for your team at that spot, if you need home runs, there aren't many guys that hit this many home runs as you get this part of the draft.
Yeah. Team context bothers me a little bit. The Marlins.
Yeah, what are the Marlins doing?
Well, they celebrated their improbable run to the playoffs by signing Trey Mancini. That's it. That's the list. They have not. They traded for Nick Gordon this week. So, huzzah! Let's go. Nick Gordon, guy we were high on 2 years ago.
Hey,
or was it last year? I forget which.
They signed Christian Bethancourt.
Yeah, that's true. Also, I'm massively discounting their offseason. Sorry, my bad.
They really haven't done anything, have they?
It's so frustrating because they didn't spend any money to begin with there.
They got fun. They got some fun young pitchers. You just add. They probably need to add a starter and one bat, and they could be they're not beating the Braves, but they could definitely be a wild card team.
Yeah, they could be. They could be. I'm reading Sean Childs' chat. I'm forgetting which player he's referring to hitting 320, but
I think it was Torkelson. But man, yeah. I love Torkelson, but he's hitting 320.
Yeah, in third round in 2025, he says, if that's Torque. Yeah, I guess you're gonna have to fight him if you're in the same league.
Yeah, suddenly I better not be in Sean's league because I'm not getting Spencer Torkelson anymore.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Marlins are frustrating because they could be good. I mean, their pitching's fun. They have some interesting players. I just think they've done nothing to support that breakout. And I think that a classic thing that people do is when a team surprises someone, people overlook the potential of them. Gravity is a strong force, and that likelihood of them pulling them back is there, especially in the NL East. I mean, and granted, I know the schedule is not as imbalanced as it was in the past, but they're still in the same division as the Braves and the Phillies, and even the Mets are decent.
Yeah.
The Nats are over there hanging out, but
not decent, by the way.
Yeah, they're not eating pace like the Rockies are, but there's my weekly reference on that. But they're still doing weird things like trying to sell the team and all that. But until they do that, they're not going to be a real franchise.
You pointed that out. It's weird how little their team looks exactly the same as it did last year.
Yeah, minus Alcantara.
Wow, that's right. True. Minus Alcantara's out with injury. You're right. That's a fair point too. Going back to your Reds, we talked about CES a little bit. We talked about Spencer Steer. Noelvi Marte is the young stud coming up now. I mean, I think there was Ellie last year, and now it's Marte. Although he came up last year, and he
already came up.
Yeah, 123 plate appearances, but he's the guy after Ellie that's coming in. But he started out pretty well. He hit .316 in the majors, 3 home runs, 6 stolen bases, 120 plate appearances. He was 14 home runs, 24 steals in the minors before that in about 125 games. Hit the ball hard in the majors, was not overmatched at all. 46% hard hit rate, obviously a small sample, but came up, hit the ball hard. Only a 20% K rate too. You'd love to see that. A young guy coming up to the majors. I'm gonna let you talk the Reds here. Like, talk to me about playing time, talking about Marte's upside. ADP is about 163. So we're talking the 11th round in here. What do you feel about this one?
So if you follow my playing time projection, I got him for 554 plate appearances. 163 easily I'm easily there. And ahead of that as far as that goes.
If he gets 550, he's a slam dunk at that price.
Yes, exactly. If Ariel's right at ATC, he's got him for 461 plate appearances. That ADP or lower is the proper price. I mean, I don't doubt the skills. I think the guy can flat out rake, and he runs. He had 6 stolen bases in 35 games with the Reds. The Reds run. Yeah. That's the other thing. It's not, we talked about Steer earlier. You have a manager that allows them to run. He gives them the green light, and not just in stolen bases, but taking extra bases on the base pass means it usually translates into stealing an extra run or two, too, by the way. I think I'm talking about a guy that could go 17, 20. If I have him 17 and 25, that might be, it might be a little high, but
hitting like 280 or something like that.
275.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that gets him easily. So
that's a grab him around early for sure kind of projection, but it's all the playing time, I think.
Yeah. And yeah, you're right. We're not playing in a dynasty league, and the dynasty league I'm in, I tried to trade for him and couldn't. So Brian Feldman will not trade him to me. Meanie, not a very nice human. But he's a great human. But
he's 140 picks past the dynasty guy. I made a comment on that last time. Like, you're talking about a second round pick in Dela Cruz, or a 11th round pick and a guy that doesn't have the upside Dela Cruz right now, but got a better hit tool for sure.
Yeah. So thing to watch. He did suffer a hamstring injury in winter ball, 6 to 10 week injury. That was about 9 weeks ago, maybe 10 weeks ago. It's close to that. So watch to see his status at the beginning of spring training. Obviously, if he's not playing spring training games right away, ratchet that down a little bit there, because then he's behind. And the Reds are looking for a reason to find someone to find someone to sit or get sent down, as the case may be. Marte might be that guy.
Red spring training, like production and how you guys look, might actually
super
matter.
important.
Yeah, we talk about spring training stats don't matter. Like, there's gonna be someone that's gonna start the year as the kind of the odd man out.
Yeah, and I think talent wills out when both the CES and with Marte.
Yep.
And so I'm saying get him, but what I think should happen isn't necessarily what is going to happen. I will say David Bell's not afraid to play kids. And if Marte is anywhere close to where he was when he got the call last year, then great. Or if he's not, then he's Brett Laurie, and I'm an idiot again. But
Brett Laurie, wow, I hadn't heard that name in a while.
That's a throwback to mistakes of Jeff's past.
Also, mistakes of Billy Bean's past.
Yeah, a lot of people. There's a lot of people's girlfriends in that room. But I think that it's just one of those things where you just, I think there's the talent is real, and so I want talent.
I just find Heimer Candelario so boring in this mix.
Yeah, I mean, boring can sometimes be good, and keep in mind,
and I know he was good last year. I do get it, but just so boring.
And he's getting into a better hitting environment this year.
Yeah.
So
Keller's WSI plus. I undersell him. It's 117 last year. Like he was a pretty good hitter last year.
Yeah, and he's going to be probably in a decent spot in the order to start. They paid him. So
how much did he get paid?
Play. It's like $3 and $40 or something like that.
I saw a quote that David Bell said he's going to be an everyday player. I mean, that doesn't mean anything in January, but I mean, I think they're going in with the season. They're going to the season when he's at least to start the year. He's their everyday guy.
Yeah. He got paid $3 and $45. He's going to play.
He's playing. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I know that doesn't matter, but it matters.
Yeah. Contrast that to India's signing 2 for 8.8. I mean,
wow,
that means nothing. It's service time obviously matters. Candelario was a straight up free agent, whereas they were buying a year of arbitration.
But 345, he's playing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my point, though. India's contract doesn't control. Candelario's does.
That's interesting. I knew he had the money popped out when he signed. I didn't know it was quite that much, but yeah, you're right. He's playing. Sticking to the NL Central, one last guy at corner I want to talk about before we jump out of here for tonight. Ke'Bryan Hayes is someone that we've feel like we've been waiting for multiple years, and it's coming. And he had that first year where he hit 380 or whatever in his first 100 plate appearances, and then kind of got really boring. Then got hurt. Then got boring. Then stole 20 bases in 2022. And last year, the power finally came. He had 15 home runs. He only had 7 the year before. 15 home runs, 10 stolen bases. The hard hit rate's actually good, 48%. I was surprised by that. Doesn't strike out. Dropped a strikeout rate under 20%. Hit 271 last year. ADP's 175, and for the first time, I think I might be in. And this is weirdly a guy that you're going to get a nice batting average and some decent pop. You're not going to get a lot of home runs, a few stolen bases. He's not very fast, but I think he's good at stealing bases, but he's not very fast. Although it's
a weird combo.
He got 6 times last year, so maybe he's not as good as I thought. He was 20 for 25 the year before, but he's only a 43rd percentile sprint speed. I think the price is about right, though. I think you're going to get a guy that hits 270, and I think he might hit like 20 to 22 home runs and kind of enough to make this price range work at third base.
I think you're almost trading. He's getting a little bigger, a little stronger, which means he's running worse.
Yeah,
he might run less often.
I think 6 to 8 steals are probably the most likely outcome.
He only struck out 19.8% of the time.
Yeah,
only had 5.3% walk rate though, too. So I mean, it's interesting. Power came, but it still was a ISO of 182. It wasn't amazing.
I like the 29% fly ball rate in 2022 up to 39% last year.
I do like.
I think we're changing launch angles. We're hitting the ball harder, growing into his body. 27 years old. I don't think a 25 home run season's out of the mix here. I think actually he's gonna show some pop this year. I've talked myself into with the price. I think that he's going to be a guy that hits enough home runs that the batting average is going to work too.
I'm a little lower than you on him, but I get the argument. He might be the rare outlier where the age 27 theory is no longer debunked. It's actually true again.
Yeah. It's funny how it's gone from 27 to like 23 or whatever it is now. Like it's wild how things change. Yeah. But for the first year in a while, I like Ke'Bryan Hayes. I think that if I need a third baseman in this range, I think he works pretty nicely.
Yeah, it's nice to know who your later round third baseman.
Yeah.
Candelario is late too. I mean, that's a guy I probably will consider at his price point.
He's 225 in ADP, so like the middle of the draft. I mean, you're right. The park context is big with him. I mean, he's going to a really nice hitter's park. And now that you told me the contract, he's playing a lot. I like that 225 also. We'll do a post 200 podcast at some point too, but I think he might be on it.
Yeah, I also think I like Max Muncy in this range too. If you're looking for mid round third baseman, I think there's some batting average issues, but I mean, legit power is still there. And yeah, anyways, I think
if you're picking between like Muncy, Ke'Bryan Hayes, and Isaac Paredes, do you have like a strong preference in there?
Muncy over Hayes. I need to see it. Still show me with Hayes before I take him over someone like Muncy. Paredes is the guy everybody loves him, right?
The weirdest profile ever though.
Yeah.
Like hits the ball least hard of anybody in baseball, but had 31 home runs last year.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of love for him in the air. So
everything he just pulls the ball in the air when he hits it hard, and it just works for home runs. But like, it's so weird to say 31 home runs with a 28% hard hit rate. He's 6th percentile hard hit rate last year, hit 31 home runs. It's a wild stat.
I didn't really have a whole lot of them last year. Don't know if I'll have a whole lot of them now. I don't know. We'll see. Right now, I'm
pretty sure with the way I evaluate and draft that I'm not going to have any of them, and it may not work, but I'm just not buying it. I think he's more likely to hit 18 home runs than 30 again.
Yeah, I think that's right, especially with the Rays. They got Caminero coming up, and I know he's got to force his way in. He could play short, but he could play third also, or play, because the Yandy Diaz is now at first. So Paredes, it's basically, if I got that right, I think Yandy's at first and Paredes is at third. So we'll see how it works out. But the Rays are going to Ray, and they're going to do certain things, and it's going to confound us because they can, and it'll work out for them too. And they're going to win more games than people expect, even despite having big losses.
Yep. They do. Every time I've learned just not to count them out anymore.
Yeah.
I'd go Hayes. Oh, I mean, it depends what you need in your team, but I'd go Hayes over Muncy in a vacuum. I want the 270 instead of the 210. And I think that, I think the home run difference will be 10 rather than 20.
Yeah, I can see that.
Neither one's going to run. Muncy's 33. Hayes is 27. Depends what you need. If you need power, I think you have to go Muncy. But if you need kind of a balance, your team's looking pretty good. You need some balance. I think I go Hayes if I'm going straight up.
I think if you've got one low average guy, you can't take Muncy there probably.
Agreed there too. I mean, he hit 196 the year before, so you bring really low numbers in. He had 212 and 196. He hits 240. That's a great batting average here.
Yeah, you bring Jerry Gallo in the play. I mean Joey Gallo, but yeah, hey, go as Jason Jablonski says in the forum. He's in DC with plenty of playing time now, no pressure, so could be there. But that's a much later round.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think that wraps up the corners. A lot of really interesting names and some pockets in here that I think are really cool, like how all the young guys are kind of put together, and then you got some gaps in there. And I think it's a fun range, but one you have to think about, especially at third base. The points you were making about third base is very true as we went through here. I think that I have to make sure that I get one of those guys.
Yep, I like it.
I want to thank everybody for listening. We always really appreciate it. Sorry we're a day late this week. I think we'll be back on Sunday next week. Is that right? You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, but I have Scarf, so we'll have results to talk about from that.
We're going to factor in 7 to 9 hours for that draft.
We might factor in me drafting from home, but I prefer to go in person. But I've been.
Are you guys on in person? You don't know yet?
Yeah, it's in person, but online is an option. I prefer to be in person because I like seeing those guys, but I'm also all over God's green earth for the last. It's going to be like 7 days in a row in a hotel room, so we'll see.
Understood. Okay, we'll figure out a time. We'll be back at you next Sunday. Thanks to Fantrax for the sponsorship of the podcast. We always do appreciate that. If anyone wants to follow Jeff on Twitter, he's at Jeff_Erickson. I am at Scott Jenstad. You finally are free of football tweets, so we'll get a lot of baseball going here. Looking forward to prepping, looking forward to getting closer to drafts. So we'll talk a lot of players here in the next month and a half. Look forward to it. Hope everybody has a really good week, and we'll see you next Sunday night.